Hi guys, welcome to week 12 of Comp 1. I hope you had a nice little break from online Comp 1. We're going to get ready to jump back in head first now, so you might have gotten a little bit of a head start on the watching and reading for this week. But please be sure to look at the assignment for this week, print off the two Word documents I've given you, and really, again, be ready to jump in head first. I talked a lot pre-break about how we're putting together all of the things that we've learned this semester and a couple of the essays that come now and post-break and toward the end of the semester. So that's what you'll be working on in the next couple of weeks, is your first kind of formal argumentative comparative analysis that will use a bit of research to put into practice many of the things that you've been analyzing and critiquing for the last few weeks. And remember, always remember that in writing classes, these skills don't exist in a vacuum. So when we talked about description and narration at the very beginning of the semester, and you wrote an essay that will look quite different from what you'll be writing next, you still will use those descriptive skills. Sometimes it's appropriate to tell stories, whether your own or other people's. So just please remember that all of the things that we talk about are connected in this class. So for the next couple of weeks, our focus is going to be broad and specific at the same time. So first I'll talk about the readings that you are doing. The readings that you will be discussing in the forums are Reviving Ophelia, Inside the World of Boys, and Why Boys Don't Play with Dolls. I'd like for you to think first, when you read Reviving Ophelia and Inside the World of Boys, these are very interesting excerpts from larger books, and they both use anecdotes. They use stories of individuals in very different ways. So in Reviving Ophelia, Mary Pipher starts with her argument, with her analysis, kind of broadly discussing the world of girls and adolescent girls. And then she tells a story about one specific girl who she's talked to and what her life looked like. Pollock does kind of the opposite. He starts with the story of Adam and then broadens out to his main argument about boys and what it looks like to be a boy in our culture. So think critically about how they compose their essays and their arguments, and how they both use anecdotes and use stories to support their argument. And then Why Boys Don't Play with Dolls, that's a bit more of a straightforward argument, kind of short and sweet, talking about kind of big picture gender norms in our culture, the nature versus nurture, and the idea that the women's movement she's talking about being in the 60s and 70s being kind of unfinished business in our culture, and that girls can be, quote, tomboys and be, that's totally acceptable, but boys still can't like stereotypically feminine things and not be made fun of, basically. And she says a lot of that is parents who kind of stick to those gender norms. So you'll be discussing those readings in the discussion forum. You'll respond to one of the prompts for each of those readings by noon on Wednesday. Please start quoting the text and citing it properly within your discussion posts. And then by Friday at noon, you will respond to at least one classmate in one of the forums. I've also put an optional forum there about Killing Us Softly, the video that you either watched or will watch in the next few days. Killing Us Softly, as she introduces it, as Jean Kilbourne kind of introduces the video, is this presentation that she's been revising and giving for the last 30 plus years, examining advertising and gender. She focuses on women in advertisement, but she touches also on men in the media and turning the same kind of critical analytical eye on how men are portrayed, and kind of gives that meaning. When you watch films like this, we talked about this a little bit when you watched Why Education Kills Creativity, and we talked about it a lot, and you did a whole lot with Food Inc. In terms of looking at these as texts, looking at these videos as compositions, and not just kind of sitting back and being entertained, but critically analyzing how these speakers or these filmmakers are trying to prove their point. So in Jean Kilbourne's video, you can imagine that being typed out and being something that you read, kind of research-based, argumentative essay. Um, think about the rhetorical appeals that she uses. Um, it's great. A couple of times I always like to point out when she says, people often tell me that I'm reading too far into this. However, so she's doing that kind of great skill of knowing what people who disagree with her are saying, anticipating that, and then pushing back against it. So while I want you to be certainly conscious of the content in this video, because I'm hoping that it inspires you in some ways to write, to respond to one of the prompts for your essay, I also want you to be thinking critically about the video as a piece of composition and how she makes a clear argument at the beginning. She supports her argument with evidence. We get a lot of visual evidence and research evidence as well. She gives statistics. And then she has a call to action at the end. So again, think about it as composition. She brings up a whole lot of issues and kind of she shows a great deal. And if you open and look at your comparative analysis argument research essay assignment, you'll see that I've given you 3 kind of broad prompts to choose from. You have a lot of flexibility in this assignment, but the path that you go down will be kind of one of these 3 prompts. So you will be making an argument, you'll be making a claim, kind of giving meaning to something kind of involving gender, and we'll go over these. You'll also be doing brief research, kind of mini research. Certainly one of the essays from the text you can use as a source. You can use Killing Us Softly as a source, just cite it like a web video. And then you'll also need to find your own examples. So it might be commercials or an article. I'm not asking you to do heavy-duty research here. This is not a research essay. I'm just asking you to find some artifacts to support your claim, kind of like Jean Kilbourne does, except she's doing it visually. So the first prompt would have you write a comparative analysis about how a product is marketed differently toward men and toward women. Oftentimes students will choose this prompt because they think it's easy. Like, oh, I'll just choose deodorant or shampoo because whatever, that's easy. As you kind of choose your topic for this, please don't think about ease. Think about what interests you and what you think you can really say something interesting and exciting about, and really dig in there and analyze. Because often if you just choose a topic because you think it's going to be easy, you're pretty bored writing it, and it becomes kind of a boring paper. So remember that. However, there are certainly interesting things you can do with this topic. You might look at children's toys, vehicles, diet programs, shampoo, deodorant, etc. But do remember that you have to give meaning to this comparative analysis. It's not just apples are red, oranges are orange, I'm done, ta-da. You have to give meaning. You're making an argument about your findings. Or you can write a comparative analysis about how a specific social structure or idea is marketed differently toward men and women. Use clear examples to illustrate your point. So you may use fictional examples, films, TV shows, kind of looking at how things like parenthood, motherhood or fatherhood, marriage, specific careers, college, religion, sex, virginity. You may look at how those big ideas are marketed differently toward men and women. And again, you may use kind of real life examples or fictional examples, looking at how these things are represented in film and television. Or you can write a comparative analysis about how men and women are marketed differently in media. So this is kind of men and women themselves. You might focus on actors and actresses, models, musicians, or politicians. Use specific examples to illustrate your point. So the last big presidential election, an interesting topic might have been how the news media, or perhaps more specifically, how campaign commercials portrayed Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton differently, and kind of look at the gender differences and how people talked about them differently. So, or you could look at tabloids and how women are reported on and how men are reported on, and just find something interesting and meaningful about gender and how men and women are shown differently in the media. So as you're thinking about this, again, this isn't a biology research paper where you're asked to talk about like biological differences between men and women. We're looking at the media. We're looking at the things that Jean Kilbourne is looking at: commercials, movies, TV shows, radio programs. If you listen to The Point in the morning, I think you could probably have a whole semester class where you analyze gender and race issues in The Point in the morning. So think about the things that surround you already and start to make these observations, kind of like Kilbourne does. And you need to then make an argument about what this means. So the apple is red, the orange is orange. What does this mean? What can I make an argument about? What does this tell us about what it means to be a woman in our culture or a man in our culture? Perhaps you come to the conclusion, you're making an argument that your comparison is really harmful to men or really harmful to women. Make that argument clear. So do a lot of observing. So kind of just turn your antenna on in the next couple of days and watch commercials, look at ads, pay attention to TV shows, radio personalities, films, etc. And you'll want to use very specific examples in your argument. So proper nouns, product names, film titles, character names, whatever it is that you're tackling, you want to be very, very specific. You may just contrast in this essay. If you remember the handout where we talked about comparative analysis, that doesn't mean that you have to say, this is how they're similar, this is how they're different. So you might just be looking at the differences and give them meaning, okay? This essay needs to be in third-person point of view, so no I think or I believe. Make your argument and keep it in third-person point of view. MLA style, your finished essay should be about at least 2 pages, about 3 pages, not including the works cited page, and you should have at least 3 good sources. Use your little brown handbook. I tell you in the forum that I'll talk about in a second exactly where to look in your handbook. And that's kind of, that's the basic, that's the gist of this essay. So the timeline of the essay for the next week, what's going to be happening is right away, I'd like for you to print out and look at the resources I've given you. Be sure you watch the video, maybe jot down some notes, and again, you can use that as a source. Do the readings and start really observing things around you and try to kind of pick out some examples and illustrations. By Friday at noon, so by April 4th at noon, I want you to post in the forum. You will just have a post, it might be a sentence or two, the argument that you plan on making and supporting in your essay. Over the next couple of days, I'll go in and kind of give you some feedback. Excuse me. Sorry. Um, sorry. The next Wednesday, you will post, and later this week on Wednesday, I'm going to post another kind of like weekly assignment to kind of help us bridge that gap for this essay. Next Wednesday, you'll post a first draft in a peer review forum, and I'll give you directions for that later this week. And also with this essay, you'll be giving me a Word document, first draft, and I will be making notes on it and proofreading it and editing it and sending it back to you before your final draft is due. Sorry, that is obnoxious. I'm going to take a drink of water. So this essay is going to be a little bit more in depth than what you've done so far. We're going to take some extra steps to really flesh out the writing process. Okay, so that's kind of what the next couple of weeks are going to look like. You'll be working on observing and reading and watching and creating ideas for this essay this week, and then work on doing peer review, conferencing with me, getting feedback on your first draft in the next week. So on Wednesday, April 2nd, I will post kind of some more information, another timeline of what's coming up, and we'll just kind of keep going from there. Before we know it, the semester will be winding down. After this major essay, we have some more readings to do. You have 2 short writing assignments, similar to the ones that you did kind of before the semester. Just you will write them and turn them in. And then the final essay in this class, which is your final exams, consider your final exam, that will go through a process like this essay as well. I will go over a first draft and give you feedback before you turn in a final draft. So really push. You have a lot of points left this semester, and this also, the second half of the semester is where you get to let your ideas and your voice shine a lot. So take advantage of that. The reason that I choose this chapter and choose this unit, and I kind of explained this to you, it's kind of similar rationale to why we do Food Inc., but this kind of gender and media assignment, this is often not something that you probably think critically about, but it's all around you and everyone can have some kind of opinion about it, because we all identify typically as being gendered. We all can kind of see how it affects our lives and the lives around us, and that makes it a really good fit for comparative analysis too, because in our culture, male, female, masculine versus feminine are typically so divided that it makes it a good topic to kind of dig into for an assignment like this. So dig in. Be interested in your topic. Please email me with any questions or concerns. My door is open literally and figuratively, so let me know if you have any questions. And read, watch, discuss, start writing, and certainly come back on Wednesday for further instructions about your essay. Have a great day.